I tell you what, Joe, I want to do this for another 3 hours, but I know both of us can't.
Yes.
But before we wrap this up a little bit, I always like to get in a little fun and learn a little bit about, what you do to bring you joy outside of your career. I know we hit on a little bit. You love playing poker. You love the thrill of being in tournaments. Give me a little story about a memorable situation in a poker tournament that really just locked you in and said, "This is what I love doing." It, almost got you so much dopamine it addicted you to that hobby.
Yeah, no, it's great. So poker is definitely a passion. I have other passions too, but for
Sure.
this particular game, I just really love the game, and so I won't wax and wane on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that I just feel at home with. It's hard to explain. Like when I'm at a poker table, some people say they're in their happy place. I'm just in a
Yeah.
happy place, and even though I'm not a hardened pro where I grind like a lot of these amazing professionals that can get up every day, and I know their hours are not traditional, but to get up every day
Mm-hmm.
knowing that you're going to face a new situation, potential variance that doesn't work in your favor, and to have to get in there and face it every day, knowing that that's your source of income. I have a lot of respect for people that can be disciplined to stay focused, positive, and do that every day. Because I know if there's
Yeah.
anyone that's listening to this right now that is doing poker and they rely on that for their income, I know how hard it is mentally to keep yourself positive. Just like if you're in a business world and you have your own business. But the challenge with poker,
Mm-hmm.
as you know, right, Brian, I'm assuming like what I'm going to say next, is
Mm-hmm.
that the meritocracy, right, associated with poker is so different than the meritocracy associated with being a basketball player, a hockey player, or a business owner,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
There's an element of chance, albeit much less chance compared to other casino type gaming, if you will. But there's still,
Mm-hmm.
your skill is still bound by the 52 cards that everyone is playing with infinite, combinations and possibilities, right? So,
Right.
so knowing all of that and knowing that I just love the game because I see it as very comparable to like business. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a metaphor because everything's right in front of you, right? It's not the
Mm.
corporation's money or investors' money. It's my money, right? And my investment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing that I felt worse in my life being in a tournament and losing all my money, having to pack up my bag and walk out of there, especially
Yeah.
when you're deep and you invested a day or two to make it to the money, you just miss it. I finished for people that don't know poker, I finished literally on the stone bubble, which means if the top 20 people make money, I've literally finished in
Mm-hmm.
21st, like multiple times, in somewhere in 24th, 23rd times. And to lose there, and especially when someone gets lucky, but lucky is part of the game, right? And I
Yeah.
feel like,
Yep.
oh, I should have won. Like, I deserve to win that. I don't think I've had a worse feeling in my life besides obviously something tragic happening. But there's no worse
Mm-hmm.
feeling I've ever had in my life doing that. But on the positive side,
Mm.
though, the best feeling I've had, besides winning pots and making decisions and just being happy to be there, is I was very fortunate and lucky. I played in 2019, just before the pandemic, in December in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
I played in a World Series ring event, and I won that event, right? And so
Oh.
it was such an amazing feeling because, and when they interviewed me afterwards, and I had some people around that knew me from the quote unquote poker world, I was
Mm-hmm.
so happy at that moment. It's really hard to explain the dopamine high that you get from that.
Yeah.
But I also was
Yeah.
very humbled because when they were interviewing me to say, how do you feel about this, blah, 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 I was really humbled because people that do this for a living, that, they are looking for recognition, some type of trophy to show that they've had an accomplishment, which is so hard to do in poker, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if you are successful, a pro knows, hey, you don't want to kind of go out and thump your chest too much because people don't want to play with you anymore,
Right.
right? It's kind of a catch 22. And so just
Yep.
to have that success and to win that one, because I haven't won anything else since that in terms of winning a ring or a bracelet, it was just a great validation. But also I felt very fortunate because I know a lot of people, they could play a lifetime of tournaments and never achieve that, So
Never get
I
there.
really felt blessed. So that was probably like my high. And the other high I get is I play streams like Live at the Bike or Live at the Commerce. I haven't done the Hustler one.
Okay.
And I play at,
Yeah.
at some of the higher stakes levels. And I have a poker channel, Joe Matton Poker. Maybe you can put that in there later if,
All right.
yeah.
Absolutely, we will.
But
You
but I
betcha. We
put a
gotcha.
lot of hands in there and different interviews talking about different things. And so I think I have close to 50 videos in there now in my YouTube channel. But, you know, I feel good there because when you're playing on camera, you're putting yourself out there, right? Because, you know that,
Yeah. Yeah.
I make mistakes and people can see it. And, I have to face the ridicule. How could you make that call? How could you do that? But I've had a lot of the converse to that situation where I'll win a $50,000 pot, right? And that's such a
Mm-hmm.
good feeling when there's in my opinion, there's no better feeling than winning money over earning money. I can't describe what it
Mm.
is, but that feeling of winning money, and you could call it earning money too, but you're really winning money.
Yeah.
There's just no better feeling. Like, yes, I can earn money at
Mm.
work and, I'm very blessed in terms of my compensation that I have, but it doesn't feel the same way, you know?
That's why I love sales. I mean, and I used to not. I used to be on the skeptical side of things, just wrapping it back around in there. But it's like when I close, or even now that I've got people that are doing it more than I'm doing it, I get the biggest high when it's a 3-week process from discovery to assessment to present. And then my salesperson comes in and says, Brian, they said yes. I'm like, we did it.
Yeah.
You won. And that is a win. I mean, he's earning his check, win or lose, but he won something that wouldn't have been there if they would have said no. And it's very much because he had to play the game. There's rules to follow, and it's absolutely it's the biggest thing. And we talk about it now that he's done this a few times. It's like even when you don't get an answer in sales, sometimes you don't. You're so high, you get to the end of the game, and you're like, now what do I do? Even when I win, I'm like, I'm shot for the day. I can't go back, sit down, and start making prospecting calls. I'm just a mess, So that's cool.
Yeah, that's really well said. So talking about sales and being different, because I used to think I had to be the best when I did something in business,
Mm-hmm.
but really you want to be different, right? And that difference has to be relevant. Otherwise, you're kind of like in a sea of sameness, if you will. And one of the things that I've learned when I think about successful product launches or just successful approaches to getting business. If you go Google this dot illusion, so everyone has seen when they're asked the question, you can Google it later. There's 2 dots, right? And you ask, hey, which one's bigger, right? And we all know it's a trick, right? Because one looks bigger than the other, but in reality, I got you. It's like the same dot. But when you look at it, your brain perceives one is bigger than the other, but based on the illusion that they're the same, right? And this is a perfect illustration for whether you're trying to be successful in a business or selling, because when you're looking at those 2 images, do you know why one looks bigger than the other? Because there's a reason for it.
What was that?
Well, there's little dots they have around it, and it's the size of the dots. So if it's big dots around it, the dot in the middle looks smaller. And if there's little dots around it, the other one looks larger. So your brain takes a shortcut to say one looks bigger than the other because of the reference points. And that illustrates marketing and sales to a T. Because when you're selling something, really what's happening is you want to change people's perceptions. It's not manipulative, because when I look at that illusion, one looks bigger than the other, right? But it's because of the reference points around it are different. And so if you're selling something of value, or if you have a product you're looking to launch, if you understand what people value today, what those references are that create value, you don't want to emulate those same reference points because you're going to be perceived as a commodity in a Me Too. Right. You need to change the dots or the reference points for value, and then people will see value in a different way. And I know that sounds simple, but it takes time to plan that and to think that through. And if you can use that time to influence, to say, hey, look, I understand what you value today. And the best illustration of that, if I use like an analogy or an example that's real, if we're on vacation, let's say you win a trip or you go somewhere or you just ante up the money and you go to the Caribbean and you stay at the Ritz-Carlton, right? How much are you spending for a beer at the Ritz-Carlton?
More than normal.
Right? So you're going to spend probably $8 to $10 for a basic beer, right? It's so expensive, right? But how is it possible that when you go on that little excursion and there's that shack on the beach and you buy that same beer is $1.50, How is that possible?
Yeah.
It's because the environment and what you see as the reference points for value, you're willing to pay more for the same exact product based on
where you are and what you're doing.
Exactly. And it's how you perceive value, right? And so metaphorically, you know, that could be done in sales. It could be done if you're launching a new product. And if you can create new reference points that connotate to value and understanding needs and all the other things that need to go along with that, you're able to get more value, more money for something that some people might say, oh, it's just a commodity and everyone has that. Well, actually, not really. You know, let me kind of educate you on these things, you know?
You'd mentioned a little bit earlier, you have a site and you have a channel. What were those again?
Yeah, so it's my name. So Joe Matton, Matton Poker. It's on YouTube.
Hey folks, thanks for checking out this clip from the Business Line podcast. For more great clips, click here and click over here for full episodes.